So I'm going to show you some destination pictures, and I just want to talk a little bit about going into my next life lesson. So I ended up going to a Meet the Masters event. I don't know if you guys have heard of ISIS. WPPI and ISIS just did a dinner like 2 nights ago, but ISIS is a big event specialist group, and they partner up with ABC, which is the Association of Bridal Consultants, and they do this Meet the Masters thing every year, where they bring all these like really successful business owners together for dinner at like a round robin, sitting at tables, and you can go from table to table and pick their brain, and it's pretty awesome. So I was kind of swimming at this time, and I was like, I need to go to this conference and find out, you know, how to deal with my business booming. So now I have the opposite problem. I'm too busy and I don't know how to deal with it. So I ended up meeting Laura Grier, who's actually one of my sponsors for this talk, and he owns Access Shot Tours here in Vegas. He does like, you can shoot machine guns in the desert and stuff like that. It's good for bachelor parties, which is fun either way, but it's good for bachelor parties. But he was speaking at the event, and he was the master at my table. And I sat there and I asked him, I was like, oh my God, Eric, like, what do I do? I'm so busy, like, do I need a business partner? Like, what do I do? Do I hire employees? And so we're gonna go into life lesson 3, which is bigger is not always better. Eric loves that that's what I named his slide, so. But it's true. He's actually like 6'5", it's kind of funny. But I sat down with him and I said, Eric, I don't know what to do. Whoa, that was crazy, I won't do that again either. So, I don't know what to do, and how do I build my business and not lose my quality and not lose my, you know, how many people are, you know, just losing my profit, I guess. You know, when you start hiring people, you're like, I'm losing all this money, but it's like, it's complicated. He sat there and he told me, build business alliances. So we talked a little bit about that, and I was already kind of doing that, but I didn't understand what he meant. But basically, it was like, you don't need employees. You don't need employees, you don't need a business partner. You don't need to have all that headache of like paying for health insurance and, you know, and all these like, you know, overhead, having a studio and all that stuff. Instead, why don't you find other peers that are at your level, like all these fabulous, you know, wedding photographers that you know in your community, and ask them to help each other out. So when I'm busy, you help me out. When they're busy, you help me out, or help him out, or like vice versa. And then you now are like increasing your business, your value of your business, because you're not just hiring like a free person to shadow you or like an intern, because everyone's like, oh, get interns, you know, which is great, like they help, but it's kind of, I don't know if you guys have interns or have ever had it, but it takes a lot of effort, especially when you're busy, to like train someone and like have them do it right, and usually they like leave or graduate or whatever, and then you're like, oh, you have to do it all over again, and it's kind of a pain. And so it's really, the idea of having a business alliance was so great to me, because you're now, you know, working with people at your level, at your peer level. Their work's going to be amazing. You can learn something from them. You can help each other out, and you're not having to hire an employee, and you're not having to do all that. So we, you know, whenever I shoot like on destination and hire someone else, I don't have like an employee I just bring. I will approach another photographer and say, hey, would you like to partner up on this? And, so that was a really valuable piece of advice he gave me. He also told me less is more, and that's actually, they've been talking about that a lot, even at the Engage conferences, all these big luxury conferences for wedding consultants and stuff. They are saying now that less is more. Like, over the top is so like outdated, you know. So, but when I say less is more, I mean, you can't build your business. So this is where I got the whole subject matter of my speech, which is building your business around the lifestyle you want. He told me he was doing 100 events a year, and then he boomed his business. He's now doing 700 events a year. It's insane, right? And so I said, oh my God, well, like, what do I do? How do I get 700 events a year? How do I become like you? And he's like, whatever you do, don't do what I did. Don't like. He's like, I wish I could take a time machine, go back in time, and talk to myself right now at your age and say, don't do what I did. And I'm like, what? You're like the master I'm supposed to be talking to about how to be as successful as you are, and you're telling me not to be as successful as you are. And he told me he was so much happier when he was doing 100 events a year. Because now he's doing 700 events a year. Every time he's at an event, he's worrying about the 6 other events that are happening at the same time. And the quality control, there's always something going wrong. He's stressed out. He's having to deal with all these extra employees and overhead. And when it's all said and done and money is paid out, he's not making that much more. You know, so all these big studios, you know, they're not necessarily making more than you just because they're shooting so many more weddings than you. And he just told me, God, I had such, my life was so much more fun when I was doing 100 events a year. And that was like a huge red, like a light bulb went off in my head when he said that, because I was like, God, that's amazing advice. You know, why don't you get as busy as you want your lifestyle to be? Like, do all the fun things, build in time for you to have, you know, days off, or build in time for vacation or doing trips or things like that. But make sure that you don't get so busy that you're not even enjoying your life anymore. And then on top of that, he was saying, you're not a superhero. So then, you're not a superhero, he said, you need help. Like, you're doing everything. So how many of you are like, I'm the only one who can edit the way that I do? You know what I'm talking about? Or, yeah, exactly. Or, I'm the only one who can like talk to the clients and book a client, and I'm the only one who can print and make these albums the way I do. And which is, you know, I'm that person, and I was like that for years. And at some point you have to concede that a little bit, because, okay, no celebrity or famous person or brand got there by themselves. Okay, everyone has a team and everyone has help. And at some point, you have to realize that there are people out there that can do things better than you. Sorry, there are. And you can pay them to do them better than you, which is pretty cool. So, like, instead of spending all your money, like, or all your time, I should say, like, blogging and doing all this stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no time to have a life, and then you're stressed out and you're not creative, and it shows in your work, and you get in a funk. You know, just have help. Like, hire someone, because when you hire someone that takes some of that, like, work off your plate, you're in your head, you're like, I can't justify spending this right now. It will come back to you tenfold, because now you're gonna have all this extra time to like market yourself, to, you know, to be creative, to go on do a creative shoot, or do something that will help you get further, and the money will come back to you. Like, you know, so it's one of those things that I had to like concede a little bit and realize that I'm not a superhero. I can't do it all myself, and I'm not the only one who can do it. So I had to like let go of a little bit of that myself.
Someone from social media?
Yes and no. What I did was, okay, social media is hard, and we actually just went to, what was it, to Furious's class, where he was like, unless you have like an assistant following you on Instagram, like with a, you know, with a phone, like they're not going to be able to have that perspective as your first person of, you know, blogging and tweeting and all that stuff. What I did do was take the time-consuming part of it out of it. So like blogging, like writing a paragraph blog in my own words, that takes me no time. But picking out the pictures from a wedding and having it uploaded into WordPress and all this stuff is really time consuming. So I did hire someone to do like that kind of tedious stuff for me. So she would just get everything up and ready in WordPress and ready to go. And all I had to do is go in it, look at it, type in my little blurb, boop, and it's done. So that changed my life, because I would spend hours and hours blogging. But the other thing too was that it's not that much extra time to do social media, like if you're just kind of getting a groove with it. But that's not even the problem. It's blogging. That was my biggest nightmare. This is what I do. I'll tell you my formula, okay? This is off subject for a second. My formula is this. Every time you shoot a wedding, this is what you should do. I actually should have made this a slide, because it's a good slide. You should always, right after you shoot a wedding and it's fresh in your mind, pick out your favorite 150 pictures. But remember, think like a magazine, so you want to pick like 80 pictures that are details, maybe even more, 90, and then the rest of them are like atmosphere shots, which is, you know, a wide shot of the ceremony, a wide shot of the reception. They call that atmosphere, and then do some portraits and stuff like that. So this is why it's so good. So now you have 150 pictures, you save them in your favorites, like you've got. So now if your bride and groom they're like, we want to put together an album, you could start it with your favorite pictures. If you want to submit to a blog or a magazine, you already have your 150 pictures ready to submit to them. If you want to update your website, like later on at the end of the year, you now have, instead of having to go through thousands of pictures, you now have all your weddings, these like 150 favorite pictures of all of them. The florist calls you, the coordinator calls you, all these people want pictures, they're already ready, they're right there. I can't tell you how many times I was like sifting through thousands of pictures to go find a floral picture for someone, or go do this or do that. And so at the end of the year, I have these little folders of all of my weddings, my favorite 150 pictures of all of them, and it's so easy to submit to blogs and weddings that way now. It's like, magazines. So, because they're always asking for like, 50 to 150 pictures. So I did that along the way. So at the end of the year, it wasn't this overwhelming task to update my website, and then from those 150 pictures, I give those 150 pictures to my assistant. She takes, I don't know, half of those and blogs them. So she doesn't have to sift through a whole wedding and do it. And when I get really, really busy, I'll have my assistant sift through and pick out the 150 pictures. But I like to be the one who chooses it. That's like, going back to that, I'm not a superhero thing. Sometimes I have to let go. If I have time, I'll do it myself. But you can have, that's something you can have an assistant do. So you can have someone go through all your weddings, pick out the 150 pictures, and it's already ready to be submittable. So.
Do you do much with subcategorization? So
Like metadata?
Yeah, like, you know, like you mentioned your categories there of your atmosphere, your details, and your portraits, and then even within your details, it could be like shoes, it could be.
You know, that's really smart. I don't really do that too much. I'll tag things. That's a good idea to name your files accordingly. I just think that that's extremely time consuming. You could just tag it under, you know, details and like take those 150 and tag them under like details and certain things like that. But in, like naming each individual file, like go ahead if you have time to do it, that'll help. But I think if you just tag like as a group, like details, magazine submission, whatever you want to do, or you can take those 150 pictures and you can have your assistant do Pinterest from them as well. Not necessarily all 150 of them, but those can be the faves that she chooses from to put on Pinterest and tag and put into different folders and stuff like
Do you
that.
find Pinterest very, I mean, it's useful, it's colorful. I've yet to really see the value of it. Have you found it, because it's so overwhelming?
It is overwhelming. Okay, it's definitely more value to brides. I've gotten direct leads from brides that have seen me on Pinterest, but I don't use Pinterest to get weddings. How did you put it, Brian? It's just another way to get yourself out there, right? It's another way to get your work out there. It's free. Like, why not have your work out there? So if it's one extra little thing that you could already have these pictures aside and have an assistant go boop, 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 and put them on Pinterest, why not just spread the word and get yourself out there? It has brought some work to me, but it's not like my main way of getting work, or I don't expect to get work from it, you know? But it is, it's a pain to add all these extra things, but I think Pinterest makes more sense for photographers because it's images. And well, I'll talk a little early about it, but I ended up getting some work with National Geographic, not based on Pinterest, but sort of. So they saw a lot of my pictures, and they are starting an internal Pinterest within National Geographic, mood boards. They want people to go to National Geographic and like check out their mood boards. And they approached me about shooting some of their mood boards for them because like they just saw my Pinterest and then we've been working together and all that stuff. So it just helps, but I mean, even Britt Bertina, who's a great wedding coordinator, she spoke, I mean, she lives here in Vegas. She contacted me based on Pinterest and said, I'd love to talk about your Pinterest in my you know, like coordinators are looking at it a lot. So it brought awareness to her about me as a wedding coordinator. So in that respect, it helps. You know, I don't know if you're like gonna necessarily book a bride off of it. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about a slideshow of my travel work in a second. So basically after having that conversation with Eric Bashir, the less is more guy, it was like an epiphany for me. I said, oh my gosh, I honestly, now I'm at this great point. Now I'm at this point in my business where I'm too busy. And I now have clients, now I can shape my business and decide what my next step is. I have the luxury of like not having to hustle and get work. I can now decide what work I want to get, right? So I decided I'm at a crossroads, and I really was doing a lot of destination weddings, and I was staying extra and having fun and taking side travel pictures. And I thought, well, God, what am I, like I'm not even doing anything with these travel pictures. I'm just shooting them for fun. It's just a passion. So after talking to Eric, I realized that I needed to, I'm gonna start playing some travel stuff while I'm telling you this, that I needed to do something with these pictures. Like, what's my next step? Okay, I love destination weddings. I'm doing travel portraits. What can I go beyond there? And I started thinking ahead, you know, writing down ideas. I'd love to do travel photography workshops. I would love to shoot more travel work, maybe shoot for Condé Nast, maybe sell some fine art. And I started thinking of all these, like, what could I do next? You know, I've got this body of work now from all over the world. So I decided after talking to Eric that I wanted to launch a separate website that was non-wedding, and it's called Wanderlust by Laura Grier. And it's, I think you guys have my cards on there. That was everything. It was going to be a personal blog about my behind the scenes while traveling. It's going to show my travel work. It will show my destination weddings. It'll link to my wedding website. I think it's more important to keep it separate. But I wanted to just have a platform so then I can launch all these other ideas in the future. I haven't started my travel photography workshops. I'm probably going to launch them this year. But you got to start from somewhere, right? You can't just be like, I want to be that person, you know, and then you're like, well, now what? How do I get to be the guy giving the workshop? So I was like, I first need to start like with the egg, you know, I need to start with a website. So I decided all last year I was going to put together a website and to start putting out there that I do travel stuff as well. And also just to show that, you know, I'm shooting a wide variety of stuff, even for my bridal clients. They love this because they love to like, wow, could you shoot some cool stuff like this while we're traveling, and I'd love to have it as part of my album and all that kind of stuff. So that was what I decided, was to do that. And I think that, I'm going to keep on going through some of these. We're going to be a mixture from all over here. It's in India. It was just really kind of an epiphany for me. I think all of you guys should go on a trip, like a personal journey of some sort. It doesn't have to be to Africa, okay? But it's worth it to, again, invest in yourself and do something for yourself. I decided to go to Peru, and I'm like, here, I'm gonna launch a travel website. And I had all these travel pictures, but I never had been like shooting with thinking about travel website in mind when I was shooting these. So I now was like, okay, now I have a reason to shoot and a reason to blog about it. And as I was traveling, I was thinking more about, there's a purpose behind my pictures, if that makes any sense. Like, now there's a story. I'm thinking about it like, oh, I'm gonna blog this. Or, oh, I'm gonna put this in, you know, I'm gonna submit it here, or whatever. And so all of a sudden, my work got better, my travel work, because I had a purpose behind it now. Now I have a website, and I was thinking more, instead of just like snapshots while I was traveling, I was really putting like a lot of thought behind it. And so I think like it's important to fund yourself to go on a creative journey. It could be just doing an inspiration shoot. It could be going on a trip. It could be whatever your next step is, like something you really enjoy. It's worth it to take yourself out of it on a non-paid job, that you're just there to focus on taking the pictures and bettering and going to the next step in your business. And it's going to be, you know, you'll find that once you get out of that mindset, you're not like, you know, you don't have a client that you're trying to make happy. You're there, and you're just there in your own head for your own purposes. It's like the creative juices just flow, and it was amazing when I started, you know, my travel photography since starting the website has gotten better.